Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on a Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering natural health on this year Wednesday morning, Rise and Shine. And this morning here, our main focus will be on mental impairment and homelessness. So what we're looking at here and some of the things that are exacerbated when we don't have a shelter and cleanliness and protection. So welcome again to our live talk program. Hopefully you had a blessed night resting ready to take on today. Thanks for stopping by and joining with me here as I share these information with you. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank thee again for the blessings of your word. I thank you, dear Lord, for your continued guidance and blessing in our lives and the wisdom that you bring forth to us by your word and by the Spirit and by the experiences of life. May you bless us, dear Lord, as we walk humbly before thee. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So we're looking here at this topic, and I have four articles to share with you. One of them on mental impairment caused by marijuana, and the other on a disease caused by that could be exacerbated or increased by homelessness, but really by fleas. And also, we're going to look at here some of the outbreaks. So I start this morning here by looking at three different outbreaks, recalls that are going on in the nation right now. And it's important to note these things, and especially if you know somebody, that's normally a regular eater of meat, then you know also that it's good to know this information to share. But it's a national news, so you probably have heard about that. So before I get into these articles, I'll read one text here, and it's in Genesis chapter 3, verse 6 and 7. Genesis chapter 3, verse 6 and 7. And it says, "And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eye, a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of both of them were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons." So this is a very famous passage of scripture, most naturally well known, well read, well studied. And if you think about what we're going to talk about here, drugs, alcohol, meats that are being recalled, all of that was never part of God's original plan. God's original plan was never for man to kill and eat, but sin made that possible because we have to often, throughout history, eat some other animal to survive. It becomes a survival diet. But also when it comes on to drugs and alcohol, fermented food or burning a substance, a plant, and then inhaling the fumes of the plant, none of that was part of God's original plan. And so all of this happening has created a lot of problem in our society and for the individuals that are going through this. And meat eating is one of those things because you have to preserve the meat, keep the meat from being contaminated, and the convection or carried forth of disease by the meat is increased. And so here Eve saw that the tree was good for food. It wasn't food before. Everything that she was eating was from a plant, but that particular plant was not classified as food. It was classified as something that will expose you to bad. And so it is, but it noticed here that it was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So it is, somebody could say, well, certain things give you some good benefits. If you smoke marijuana, it could make you hallucinate. It could make you have some mental impairment. But some people say, I want to be impaired and I want to deal with the realities of life. So that's a positive benefit. It make you basically check out while still alive. And so here she saw it, and she saw that it was desirable to affect one's mind because she took the fruit thereof and eat it because it would have made her wise. It would affect the mental faculty. And it was desirous. So here it is. Whatever we're looking at, sometimes it looks so good. It could be a slab of beef or chicken and whatever it is. and it looks so appetizing, but it comes with problems. And so we're going to read about some of those problems this morning here with you, whether you're listening in the morning or in the evening. And so right now, a quick one here. This is last week, towards the end of last week, salmonella outbreak from eggs sickened 38 in 7 states. The eggs were sold primarily in retail stores and restaurants in Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. A salmonella outbreak caused by infected eggs has sickened 38 people in 7 states since mid-June. The Center of Disease Control and Prevention said this week 10 people have been hospitalized, but no deaths have been reported. Tests have traced the infections to eggs sold by Gravel Ridge Farms of Cullen, Alabama, which has issued a recall on September 8, the CDC said. The eggs were sold primarily in retail stores and restaurants in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. The carton has best if used by date July 25th to October 3rd. A list of stores where they were sold is at the Food and Drug Administration website. Salmonella also have been reported in Colorado, Montana, Iowa, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Alabama. 24 new cases have been reported since September 10th, when the CDC issued its first report on the outbreak. The CDC advised consumers to return any Gravel Ridge Farms eggs to stores where purchased or throw them out, even if some of the eggs were eaten or no one has gotten sick. Symptoms of salmonella poisoning include diarrhea, fever, stomach cramps. Most people recover without treatment, which most actually, this would happen often. You eat some eggs, you get a stomach cramp, stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea, that type of thing, and then you move on with your day the next day or two. So that's one outbreak. Then this next article here quickly illustrate this continued problem, a yearly problem, a regular problem with meat. And I might say here that often when you think about these recalls, that means the problem is real bad. But most of the time, most of the sicknesses come from the handling of food or the storage of food, especially eggs and, meat and stuff like that. But anyhow, second article here, quick article. So 2 big meat recall affect cured ham and ground beef. As you're probably well familiar with, there's one of the largest recalls of beef in over probably 25 years is 6.5 million pounds. That's just unbelievable. A poundage anyhow of meat being recalled. So this was like in the news, but it was a secondary one that affected cured ham that didn't really make the rounds as much as the beef recall, because the beef recall was so massive. So here, two big meat recalls of cured ham and ground beef. One person died after eating ham contaminated with listeria, CDC said. This is coming again from NBC News, Maggie Fox. It says 1 person has died and 4 hospitalized in an outbreak of listeria linked to cured ham from North Carolina, federal health officials said Tuesday. And in a second outbreak, an Arizona producer recalled 6.5 million pounds of ground beef after 57 people became ill from salmonella. The ham recall affected 89,000 pounds of ham product made by Johnson County Ham Inc. in Smithfield, North Carolina. And, this is where they're having the flooding, but this was before the flooding. The ham maker has recalled the hams, which were produced from April 2017 through October 2018. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention said, and any deli or other shops that slice or sold ham should clean their equipment thoroughly And so this is October 7th. So some of that was produced in the wake of all that flooding. I might readjust there. And so this is the delicate stuff. You can imagine that stuff can grow that sliminess real easily. Anyhow, continue. Return them to the store for a refund or throw them away. Restaurants and retailers should not serve or sell recalled Johnson County ham products, CDC said. The CDC will not say where the products were sold, but the U.S. Department of Agriculture said they were distributed in Maryland, North Carolina, New York, South Carolina, Virginia. The illnesses that have been reported were in North Carolina, Virginia. Federal agencies often allow companies to keep confidential details about where the product have been sold, even in food recalls. Last month, the Food and Drug Administration said it would start giving out more information about where contaminated food products have been sold. When available, the retail distribution list will be posted on the USDA FSIS website, the CDC said. Checks have traced the listeria that have made people sick to ham produced by Johnson County Ham as far back as April 2017, the CDC says. So let's pause here before I wrap that article up. So this is a long time. So imagine they're tracing back people getting sick, and they can trace from October now, current, all the way back until over a year. So it's a year and probably 6 months, 5 months, something like that. So just think about that. So all this time, contaminated ham just going out, poisoning people who probably even their loved ones have buried them long time ago. Because they probably had some of the illness, their immune system was weakened, and it's just take them out. So very important to know, 2017, over a year ago, this have been traced back to them and been shown to be hurting people. Imagine somebody eating a ham month in, month out for lunch. Let's keep going here. Return any recalled deli ham to the store for a refund or throw it out. CDC says even if some ham have been eaten. Okay, sorry. And so people should also thoroughly clean any place the ham may have touched. Wash and sanitize drawers or shelves in refrigerator. Wash or sanitize drawers or refrigerators in refrigerators, freezers, where recalled ham was stored, the CDC said. If you develop symptoms of listeria infection after eating recalled deli ham products, contact the health care provider and tell them you ate recalled ham. This is especially important if you are pregnant, ages 65 or older, or have a weakened immune system. Listeria usually only cause mild illness, but it can cause serious sickness in people with weakened immune system, including elderly, pregnant women, cancer patient, and other patient using immune suppressant drugs. All right, so those are the two things I want to share. So, as I said, most of you were probably familiar with the outbreak that had happened with last week with the 6.5 million pounds of beef. But up on top of that, there was the ham outbreak that has been going on for over a year. So just imagine over a year, if the person liked a certain brand of ham and they were eating that ham, they were eating all that bacteria and probably constantly being sick, constantly having diarrhea and stuff. I can't understand what's happening to me because they've been eating all that stuff for a whole year. And that's just the reality. So that's kind of why one has to understand this is not like, you have the mad cow disease outbreak years back, and then after that it stops and there's no more mad cow disease outbreak. This is just a constant problem. This is just a permanent problem. Look, I just covered ham, beef, and eggs. And probably if you were following me a week, 2, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, I was covering chicken, and it's just constant. So just remember that, and that has nothing else to nothing per se to do with the constant threat of cancer. And so that's why this is so dangerous. So now I'm gonna go to my main topic now, what I want to talk about first at a time, which is mental impairment and homelessness. There's two different things. Homelessness is not the focus per se, but I'm going to tie both of them together because I believe they're together. Now, in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1, the Bible simply states that wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. And if you are one of the virgins, you know there's 10 virgins. There's 5 wise and 5 foolish. If you're one of the wise virgins, then you know to stay away from anything that deceive you, whether it be false doctrines or drugs and alcohol, because you need to be in your best state of mind. Now, marijuana worse for teen brains than alcohol, study finds. Cannabis causes lasting cognitive impairment in adolescent, according to Canadian researcher. So lasting, so that means not it's just a short-term impairment, it's a lasting impairment. Weaken and damage. So impairment is when something is weakened and damaged, especially human faculty and function. So the impairment that is caused here is lasting, but it's something that is causing it, and this what is causing it here is marijuana. Now, teen brains are more vulnerable to the effect of marijuana than alcohol, new study finds. And this is written by Shamard Charles in NBCnews.com. So teen brains are more vulnerable to the effect of marijuana than alcohol, a new study finds. Adolescents who begin using marijuana regularly may suffer lasting repercussions in their thinking ability, according to scientists at the University of Montreal. The study, published Wednesday in the American Journal of Psychiatry, followed over 3,800 adolescents from 31 Montreal area schools over 4 years. The teens who started participating in the study when they were 13 agreed to provide annual reports on how frequently they use marijuana and alcohol. They also took computer-based cognitive tests that measured recall memory, perceptual reasoning, inhibition, and short-term memory. Four powerful benchmarks here, and I'll read them again to you. Measure recall memory. So how good are you to recall stuff? That's very important. Perceptual reasoning, inhibition, very important, and short-term memory, very important. To get a more honest account of their marijuana and alcohol consumption, students were assured that parents and teachers would not have access to the information unless there was an imminent safety risk. The study concluded that marijuana had a more damaging effect on the teenagers' long-term cognitive ability than alcohol. Even after students report stopping marijuana, their cognition did not improve. So I want to pause here again because I want to say this to you. Just think about this here, right? That all the life coming up, the most of what we saw was like some of the damaging effect of alcohol. Alcohol was the big thing. Use quite frequent use, just openly, so to speak. Now we're doing this massive experiment on the human race, and we're really ramping up the production of marijuana, and we're seeing now that we're going to see the effects of it. And notice here that the teenagers as a long-term cognitive ability and it's damaged, their cognitive abilities damaged more so than using alcohol, which is fascinating. Continue reading here. Cannabis causes cognitive impairment and delay cognitive development in adolescents. Patricia Conrad, the lead author and professor of the psychiatry at the University of Montreal, told NBC News the study focused on the neuropsychological effect of cannabis. We think it's important because it is linked to how someone functions in life. It's not the first research to find that cannabis use may be harmful to teen brains. In a study published by JAMA Psychiatry is in June, University of Pennsylvania scientists analyzed 67 studies involving younger cannabis users. They discovered that young people who use marijuana frequently were more likely to have slightly lower scores on tests of memory, learning new information, and high-level thinking involved problem solving and processing information compared to non-users. Very important, wouldn't you say? Very important. Notice here again, more research is needed to determine how and why the brain is affected by early marijuana use. Scientists say, but the longer term social implication of marijuana use in teens are more well known. So I just want to pause there again. Notice here it says more research is needed, not to prove anymore that young people are damaged by marijuana, their brains. It's only to try to figure out why and how. Why this happened. Why a person, if they probably smoke weed in their 40s, is for 10 years, and a person who smoked weed from, say, 13 to 23, why is the younger person brain more damaged? And most actually, I think part of it is that the body is still growing and the brain is still developing. And it's arrested development. That was the name of a band, right? Arrested development. You arrested development, or you basically, as the brain is growing, you pounding it at the same time and diluting it. Anyhow, so that's important. So I just wanted to point that out. They're not trying to figure out if it's true that it's happening. They don't know why it's happening and how the cannabis, when it gets into the brain, why does it damage it long term. In 2014, the Lancet Psychiatry famously reported that teens who smoke marijuana daily are 60% less likely to graduate from high school or college than those who never used, and 7 times more likely to attempt suicide. Right, that's massive there. In a 2017 study led by Jazana Bork and colleagues at the University of Montreal suggests that a link between frequent marijuana use in adolescents and psychotic symptoms may be largely caused by depression. According to data provided by a National Institute on Drug Use for Teens, about 5.9% of 12th graders reported daily use of marijuana in 2017, up from 5.1% in 2007. Amid increasingly lax laws and attitude on pot, the American Academy of Psychiatrists published a report last year opposing medical and recreational marijuana use for kids. Currently, 9 states and the District of Columbia have legalized recreational marijuana for adults over the age of 21. And we end that article there. So just a quick note again from the article. I remember we're looking at mental impairment and homelessness, because when you think about mental impairment and you think about all the things that I just read to you, this is almost synonymous with homelessness. As you think about it, homelessness, for the most part, has something to do with some cognitive function, mental impairment, and this could be caused by damage from probably wars, drugs, alcohol. And it's important to note, even when we talk about opiates and all these other things, that here the research is showing that marijuana is part of this problem. not just alcohol. Mental impairment normally is easily associated with alcohol, but you could throw this in there. So when you see, you're walking on the street, you don't know what brought a person to the place of using drugs and alcohol to a certain level that will make them almost mentally unable to get up off that side of the street. But as you go past that person's homeless, one have to start thinking, what's that process? And as more research comes out about whether it be certain lifestyle results from abuse, war, when you start thinking about what happened because the person used marijuana at a young age, alcohol at a young age, or other drugs, then you see the person there. But now, as the science comes in, as the reporting comes in, and I'm one of these people that will watch videos, interviews with homeless people, because I'm trying to piece together what's happening, not in the individual, but as a larger group of people that are homeless, what's going on. And the more you look at it, the more you realize real quickly that it's not just the person wants to be there, the person sometimes can't function well. And what's caused that lack of function? Well, here goes a massive research that the impairment, the inability, the downgrading of the function of the brain, and the person literally just can't function well because the brain is not just they're dependent upon drugs, their brain is not functioning well. That's fascinating. So notice here, I'm going to take a few points here real quickly. They discovered that young people who use marijuana frequently were more likely to have slightly lower scores on test of memory. So, as you know, one thing in life is that when you're working on anything or trying to accomplish anything, when you run into a headwind or difficulty, it leads to a lot of frustration. And that can be a terrible thing. And so if you look at that, you can see how that's like a domino effect. Because the person is cool, so they smoke weed. They smoke the weed, and now they're having cognitive problem, they're having memory problem. So now, not only they're cool, but they're cool and they're dumb. But they're not dumb because they're dumb because the marijuana has messed up the brain. Learning new information is a problem. Again, why I think that it's a possibility that a person in their 40s who use marijuana is not as affected by the marijuana. It's not really that they're not as affected. It's because they already learn and have certain skills and have certain memory banks set up already. And they're not under the pressure to acquire new information. But think about the time when you're most needing to learn a lot of information. It's in the teens to the early 20s. And so that's why I say they don't know why or how. And I think part of the problem is part of the how and why. Part of it, I think, that I've observed over the years of observing people who smoke a lot of weed, is that weed kills your drive. So the time you should have the hardest drive to learn and to want to desire to be a young person, succeed, get a job, all of that drive and that push and that hormone comes hard in your teens. The hormones make you want to succeed, make you want to get a car, get a wife, get a job, succeed at schooling. And at that important, critical time in your life, a young person smoking weed, you must almost like mark them not. It's like the zero. The possibility. So that's why they say they did a research and 60% just can't even graduate high school. Because but again, a person in the 40s, 50s, 60s, they're done basically. They already hit the peak of their earning capacity, and they're not gonna start coming down that peak, down the other side of the mountain. Their desire for life and for marriage and for career, they're already hitting that peak, and now they're coming down. Their physical ability, our physical ability is peaking out in our 30s, 40s. And we start coming down. We're heading down physically. So smoking some weed is bad, but it's not gonna be as messing. It's not gonna mess up the life as much, I believe, as a person in their teens and 20s. This is why it's a loser's game for a young person. More so because that's that time when the devil would want them to smoke weed to kill their drive. And I always say, I think the problem is the experiment has been run on the ill effect of marijuana already in Jamaica. And instead of going to Jamaica and studying the ill result of the unemployed men in Jamaica who have smoked weed and they're not doing anything for their life, and there's the bad service for those who are adults who had smoked weed through their years and they're just non-productive. You don't need to do it in a larger scale in America, but that's what they're doing, and the results we're gonna see it in America, Europe, and stuff like that. It's kill drive, kill sexual drive, just the same way. All drives, anything to do with hormone, testosterone production, it just shut it down. And the person just don't have that drive. So they discover young people use marijuana frequently were more likely to have slightly lower scores on tests of memory, learning new information, and higher level thinking involve problem solving and processing information compared to non-users. Think about it again. There's many research have proven that marijuana, the whole process of marijuana is to delude the mind, right? It's supposed to deceive you into thinking that everything is cool, everything is calm. So if you're talking to a person and there's a hurricane coming or a tornado coming, run. And the person smokes some weed. Oh man, that's good. Everything is good. Everything is fine. Life is good, man. Life airy. And they're good. So now, how do you now go to somebody who is supposed to now have process high level thinking? They can't process high level thinking. They're like, man, let me sleep and eat some food. They're done. So you never see a person smoking weed and thinking that person is gonna be the next, Einstein. It's just not the reality. That person is going to be, the next person to invent certain great invention. That person is going to be the next loafer and goof off. That's the reality. And here, the numbers scientifically are coming in. Notice in 2014, again, I was going over that, it said teens who smoke marijuana daily are 60% less likely to graduate from high school or college than those who never, and 7 times more likely to attempt suicide. Just look at that barometer by itself. 7 times more likely. Why? Your brain is shot. Your life is not doing well. Nothing is going on for you. And so if that starts happening, then it can lead to more depression because you're not fixing the problem. So life is becoming more depressing, so you smoke more weed. And if you look at that, that's powerful. It's 60% to graduate from high school or college. So when you look at that number now, you look at that person on the side of the street, the pictures start to develop more and more. Because associated with that person on the side of the street, whether it was abuse or physical war or living in a ghetto, that started them on that path because they were in a situation that caused them to be depressed, and the depression led them to drugs, alcohol, marijuana to make them feel better. But at the end of the day, the drugs, alcohol, marijuana deceive the mind, delude the mind, and send them to the side of the street. Because it's not just a matter of they become addicts, but also the physical function of the brain has been decreased. And it takes a while. I've observed people who have used a lot of drugs. High level thinking, processing becomes difficult. And it takes them years to slowly get that brain going, because the brain is damaged. And the brain does not process. In 2017 study led by Bork here, a colleague at University of Montreal, suggests a link with frequently use in adolescents, marijuana frequently used in adolescents, and psychotic symptoms may largely be caused by depression. So the person started to have psychosis because, again, and I've covered this here, you think about marijuana, you think about psychosis because you're not supposed to process reality in a reasonable way, in a normal way. You're supposed to look at reality and blow it away, smoke it away. You smoke the weed and you start to assume things are a different way. So whatever going on in your life, you're broke, you don't feel broke anymore. You feel like it doesn't matter. It don't matter. You can't pay your bills, it don't matter. You can't succeed in school, it doesn't matter. And just life, nothing matters because life is good. Why it's good? Because the marijuana told you it's good. That's why this is becoming so good. So it's such a terrible thing, but the reporting is lined up with reality. You think about the reality, you think about a hippie. What's a hippie? A hippie is almost synonymous with weed, with marijuana. What is that about? The hippie is just ain't good. Ain't no reason to try to progress or succeed in anything, because he's married to Mary. Now, according to data provided by National Institute of Drug Abuse in Teens, it's a 5.9% of 12th graders using marijuana. So it's an increase. All right, so that takes me down to this thing here, what I want to talk about. This thing is not about homelessness per se, but I want to show you some of the problems that are linked to homelessness. And I just want to continue to talk about homelessness, because what my biggest fear is that sad reality that there's a teenager that is either listening or is in your family or a friend of yours. And it's important for you to communicate the threatenings and the stark possibilities that lie ahead of them. And one of the stark possibilities that lie ahead of them is this concept here of being a bum, a homeless person, whose brain is not just there because they're addict. They're on the side of the street because their brain physically, cognitively is not working. And so, to plead a cause against all what is being said in the secular media about the benefits and the greatness and the glory of marijuana, the glory of alcohol drinking, the glory of all this meat eating and garbage food, to remind them, look around at all the obese people, look around at all the mentally ill people, the suicidal people, look around at all the homeless people, look around at all the depressed people, and look around and see what's synonymous with them. It's a certain lifestyle. Don't be fooled by that lifestyle. Don't be fooled by people thinking, showing off that this is the good lifestyle. This is why it's so important to me, in my mind, because the best time to communicate this to a person is when they're young. Because when they get older, and say a child is 20, and 15 years from now, if life lasts, he's now messed up and he's dealing with the mental damage from marijuana. It was just better he never went on that road. But you have to communicate this now, so that that child don't go down that road and it has to deal with the ill result. We talk about these things because we want people to stay away from the drugs, stay away, whether it be drugs issued by their doctor or drugs issued by the guy on the side of the street or the hippie on the side of the street or the drug dealer on the side of the street. Just stay away from that stuff. Stay away from the alcohol, because it's not worth it. Stay away from the meats and stuff like that. It's not worth it. Somebody said, but that's a good food, a good life. It's not worth it. Anyhow, so I read this thing here now. This is, again, from NBCnews.com. And typhus reached epidemic levels in parts of Los Angeles area. A typhus outbreak spread by fleas have been reported in downtown area and in neighboring Pasadena, California. This is written by Dennis Romero and Andrew Blackstein. A health official on Friday reported a typhus outbreak in Los Angeles County and say it has reached epidemic levels in the city of Pasadena. 20 cases have been reported in Pasadena, mostly in the last 2 months, health officials told NBC News, noting that a normal year would typically only see 5 infections. The city of Long Beach, California, has 12 cases so far in 2018, double the normal annual number, said Emily Holman, the city infectious Disease Response Coordinator. The number of cases in the air in the rest of the county since July is 9, which count as an outbreak. Los Angeles County Department of Public Health officials said in a statement, Pasadena and Long Beach have their own health departments even though they exist within the county. The Pasadena Public Health Department is reporting epidemic level of typhus fever this year. The official source of the outbreak is said to be fleas from domestic and wild animals. Infections happen when the feces from infected fleas are rubbed into cuts and scrapes in the skin or rubbed into the eyes, the county health department states in its website. Some experts, however, say the true culprit is the inhumane conditions the county expanding homeless population lives in. All of the cases have a history of living or working in downtown Los Angeles area, a county health spokeswoman said in via email. Andy Bales, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission, which has nearly 1,400 beds for those fleeing, not fleeing, but leaving, fleeing or avoiding downtown's Dickensian Street, said the condition on Skid Row are ripe for even more serious issues than this. So this is the Skid Row area, I guess, Dickensian Street. In 2014, Bale had a leg amputated after he was exposed to flesh-eating bacteria downtown. The office of Mayor Eric Garcetti said it is on the case. We are deploying every available resources to help control and stop this outbreak, mayoral spokesman Alex Commissar said via email. The city and county has formed a dedicated task force through our Unified Homelessness Response Center to keep Angelenos safe and ensure everyone gets the treatment they need as quickly as possible. Typhus or typhus fever is a flea-borne infection disease that can cause higher fever, headache, chills, body ache, rashes, and in rare cases, meningitis and death. It is not the same as typhoid fever, which is caused by a different kind of bacteria and is usually spread by consuming contaminated food and water. Health officials in Pasadena are blaming the outbreak on warm summer and fall and human interaction with animals in neighborhoods that have an interface with wildlife in canyons and the Angeles National Forest. They say the disease has nothing to do with homelessness in their high-income city. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Health spokeswoman said via email that officials are investigating the source of the typhus in downtown Los Angeles by searching specifically for high concentration of infected fleas and or infected rats, feral cats, and opossums. Bale noted there's lots of rats in Skid Row, and there's lots of dogs that belong to homeless people. In September, the nonprofit research organization Economic Roundtable released an analysis that concluded that the county has 102,955 homeless people, nearly double what government officials had previously reported. The number on the sidewalks have increased dramatically, said Alice Callaghan, founder of the Skid Row service organization Las Familias del Pueblo. They're like refugee camps. End of article. So a few points here. I remember we talking here, and I wanted to share some information And note there, you see some of the result of homelessness. And see, when we say to a person, hey, look, stay away from anything that will damage your brain, that will impair your brain, disable your brain, mess up your head, because one of the ill results could be homelessness. Now, this is particularly interesting to me because of what I see here. As I say, I was recently in San Diego, and they have a major homelessness issue there. Now, here they're saying that, and I've heard about Skid Row. I'm sure you've heard about Skid Row for years. I don't know. It seems like I've always known about Skid Row, even when I was a child. So this place has been famous for years. But anyhow, they're claiming that in the county, a regular county. I don't know how big this county is because I kind of get a feeling of the size of, say, San Diego County. But Los Angeles now, wow, 102,000. That's a city, American city of homeless people in a very high income city. And if you notice here, the health official from Pasadena is trying to blame the outbreak on human interaction with animals in the wildlife canyons around the Angeles National Forest, which I don't think is possible. Probably a combination, because it's fleas. The fleas probably are on the dogs that are with the homeless people, and they're probably on the opossums and feral cats. And people interacting. I don't know if people interact with feral cats. But anyway, I guess if you're sleeping out in the forest. But if you look at it, they're saying they contradict that spokesperson, because they say most of the people are getting it, they're getting it from downtown. And so I found that very interesting, that they're trying to move away from that idea that they have a flea outbreak in downtown. That could be bad for business. If you think about it, that you're going to a town, as a place as famous as Los Angeles, and you're going to you run into fleas that could give you typhus. That's not good. And as I say, one of the things that I'd observed when I was in San Diego, that a lot of the homeless, not all of them, but quite a few of them I've noticed, will have dogs, while being homeless. And the reason for that is that they have the dogs so that they can have something to live for. So they take care of these dogs, but then they're not in the best of condition because they're sleeping on the sidewalk. And one thing was synonymous with the sidewalks in San Diego was urine. There was urine everywhere because there's so much dogs. Actually, it's a place I don't know. I've yet to research. I'm about to research it. Where in America has more dogs than San Diego? Because San Diego is it's a lot of dogs. I've never been to one place that's seen so many dogs. There's a lot of dogs, and the dogs pee constantly on the sidewalks. And then I'm assuming the homeless people are peeing on the sidewalks also. So as you walk around San Diego, there's urine everywhere. And so imagine there's just dog pee everywhere, urine everywhere. You feel like you even feel sticky on the foot bottom, the shoe bottom, I should say. And they frequently have to power wash the sidewalks. Just constantly, days of power washing sidewalks while I was there. So I found that fascinating. But then the homeless people are laying on the sidewalks, just sleeping right out in the open, no tent cities, just sleeping in the open because it never rains. So just imagine this kind of possibility of infections and stuff like that, where you just lay on a pee-covered, urine-covered sidewalk. So you can see the guy now, Bales, who's talking. He says there's a lot of rats on Skid Row, and there are lots of dogs that belong to homeless people. And he himself had a situation because he run now a homeless ministry or non-profit that have over 1,400 beds. You think that's fascinating, to have that much beds available for homeless people, and still you have 102,000 homeless. That's some real big numbers. So, and he himself had got an infection while on Skid Row and had one of his legs amputated. So, you're talking about some very inhumane conditions. And this is a very high income city. So why is it important? This is no scare tactics. This is just reasonable thinking. Why is it important for you to talk to your children and young people around you about be careful of messing around with drugs and alcohol, messing around with marijuana that has proven to be one of the big entryway to put people on those sidewalks? Is that I'm guaranteed if you go to most of these people that are on the sidewalks laying in that urine with that flea infested dog. Said, would you imagine yourself here when you were 16, when you just took the first hit of that blunt? And they'll tell you no. They couldn't imagine themselves there. I guarantee if you take any young person and say, you see these people on here, do you think that that's you're possible to end up that way with that smoking that weed? They said no. They said, I'm just having some fun. But they're taking in a deadly poison in their mouth. And that deadly poison in their mouth will slowly poison primarily their brain because they're smoking it to alter their brain function. But it's altering literally brain, it's diluting it. How does it dilute it? With the chemicals in it to dilute the brain. And that delusion can become a permanent psychosis, where the brain is permanently diluted. And that person don't care. The only thing they care for is another hit. And they go on from that to other heavy drugs. So it's important to notice, because look at the conditions and you look at the situation, and yet people blow you off all the time. Hey, what's the big deal? You see a person dying of cancer, you say, hey, look, that leukemia chicken, those salmonella with, those chicken with salmonella and all this cancer in these meats, get off that stuff. They'll be like, oh, you're overreacting. And then they died of some colon cancer, and now there's an overreaction going on in their butt or in their buttocks or in their anus. And you'll be like, that's the reality. But we don't see it that way because we say, oh, it's an overreaction. What's the big deal laying in that pee? Now, notice here again, this here that typhus, which is a flea-borne infectious disease that can cause fever, headache, chills, body aches, rashes, and rare cases, meningitis and death. Now, that's important for you to think about, because imagine when you feel sick, the first thing you start thinking about is, I need to get home, especially if you're on the road. I need to get home, take a shower, lay in bed, and just sleep off this thing and be close to a toilet, be close to a toilet bowl that I can either diarrhea in it and vomit in it and then go back to sleep. That's what you're thinking. You're thinking you need warmth, you need a bed. Imagine having this and you're on the side of the street. Rough. And you say rough like the dog that the person has to catch the flea. And this is the reality. So this is the type of immune. It cannot be good for disease. And this is what the person say, worse is yet to happen. Because imagine when disease outbreak in those areas, it goes through them like wildfire. If there's a bad batch of drugs, it just start taking people out. If there's a bad disease that's going around, it just start going from one needle to the next needle. These areas are the pits of whatever it is. If you notice, almost in all teaching hospitals, they're close to these areas. The worst areas in our country is where you have the best teaching hospitals, because the doctors can learn about diseases that you only probably read about in books if you're somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But if you're in many of these city areas with all these homeless people and stuff, you will be able to know and see the difference between typhus and typhoid. Sad but true. If somebody doing dumpster diving, that's not churn your stomach, dumpster diving. I've seen this, where a person rummaging through the garbage, and I'm like, oh man. And as I say, if you go to that young person when he was young, alive, and partying, they say, hey, look, that could be your future. They'll be like, what are you talking about? 10 years later, 20 years later, oh, he's on the street dumpster diving. Can't imagine it. I used to say, see that drugs and alcohol, that's what got you to this place. That's what bring you to this place. So it's important to know. So this is what's going on over there in Los Angeles County. They're having a typhus outbreak, and it is coming out of that downtown area from Skid Row. And as I say, it is an unreal condition that people live in. I share a few verses before you leave with me here. In Proverbs chapter 31, verse 5 and 6, it says, let they drink and forget the law, Lest they drink and forget the law, speaking about a king, that a king should not drink wine. I guess I start from the beginning. It is not for king, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for prince to drink strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law, and pervert the judgment of the afflicted. Give strong drink to him that is ready to perish, and wine to them that are heavy of heart. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery. Think about how wine work. Wine work that you can drink it. You can be in Skid Row, drink alcohol, smoke marijuana, and you think that you're in a palace. You do that every day. After a while, you permanently think you're in a palace. Isaiah 5 verse 11 through 23 says, Woe unto them that rise early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink, that continue until night, till wine inflame them. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Woe unto them that are mighty to drink wine, men of strength to mingle strong wine drink, which justify the wicked for reward and take away the righteous of the righteous from him. Notice you're deluded. It's a delusion, and that temporary delusion can become a permanent delusion. If a person have ever smoked weed, you know what I'm talking about. Get off it, knock it off, as they say, because you could put yourself in a situation that temporary delusion become permanent, and you permanently can't know what is good or what is right. Don't play with your future. You might regret it. And that's what happened to many people. They're permanently in this type of way. And this type of way becomes damage. Isaiah chapter 28 verse 7. Isaiah 28 verse 7 said, But they have erred through wine and through strong drink are out of the way. The priest and the prophet have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. If a person get up every day and all they want is drugs and alcohol, they ain't gonna want to shower. I've seen homeless people where their skin look like it's just bursting over with sores and balls everywhere. Why? You're not gonna clean yourself. You just vomit everywhere and just lay there. And that's the focal point. But my big issue, it's for them, most of them will never recover. Most people never recover from their addiction. They'll die in their addiction. That's just the reality. That's the statistics so far in life. But it's for that person who never started. And that person who just started. Stop. Because this is not a good future. To have a mind, I've known so many adults that they had smoked weed when they were young. They stopped, and years later their cognitive function, their mind, the processing of information, their deep level thinking never recovered. Never. I've known multiple people like this. Never recovered. The brain just don't turn over properly. Because there's some damage that has been done there, because you're doing something that deludes the mind. It's the whole process. The whole reason to smoke weed is to deceive oneself. It's self-deception. To make oneself feel and act a certain way that is not real. Well, that chemical process, exactly how that works, only the devil knows. But that chemical process, when those chemicals go in the brain and does that, will lead to permanent damage. Where after a while the person is in that state where they're deluded because the brain is damaged, because it's being chemically manipulated. We need to stay away from that, stay away from drugs, stay away from anything that will lead to our demise or failure in life and ultimately loss of our salvation. This is what we need to stay from, and stay sober, because we have an adversary that's feeding our young population drugs and destroying their life and making them suicidal. Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you, dear Lord, for the reproof, the correction, the instruction that you give us. I pray, Lord, you may bless us that we might stay on the straight and narrow, that we might follow Christ all the way, and give all things to Jesus and leave the world and its failures behind. This is my prayer in Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Form Radio. Looking forward to talking to you live again tomorrow morning, where we should talk about current events. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with Jesus.